welcome back to You and I for the Kenai. I'm back here with Koebryn today, and today we have Shera Burg with us, who's the project coordinator at Henu Wellness Court, to tell us about Henu Community Wellness Court as a community resource. How's it going today, Shera?
It's going good.
Good? Mm-hmm. Good. I'm glad we could be here today. I'm really excited about talking about Henu Wellness Court today. It's a pretty unique court system in the way it works, so we'll actually let Shera talk about it, though. We'll kind of dive right into it. So what is Henu Community Wellness Court?
Henu Community Wellness Court is a joint jurisdiction felony drug court here in Kenai, Alaska. And we're only one out of two in the whole U.S. that's a joint jurisdiction felony drug court. And what joint jurisdiction means is that we are tribal and state jurisdiction. So the state of Alaska court system and the Kenai Indian tribe got together and formed this court. There's another felony drug court that's joint jurisdiction in Minnesota, and we've kind of, I know some of the people from our court traveled there when it was first getting started to kind of see how they did things, but we're only the second one in the U.S. They have other joint jurisdiction ones, but not for drug courts. Mm-hmm. So I say drug court, it's a wellness court. It's considered a wellness court, but it's drug and DUI, anybody who's using substances, it's for them who have a felony charge that's open. So basically what happens is someone who has a drug and alcohol issue, they could have a one-time felony DUI. They're charged with a felony. They come to court. As long as they have not made a plea yet and they're still in the court process with an open charge, they can be considered for our court.
Okay.
And there are several criteria they would have to meet.
And what are those criteria?
They cannot have charges of a sex offense. They cannot be charged with dealing. They cannot be charged with assault.
Okay.
Are you really? We have other. That's the main criteria. It needs to be a felony. It can't be a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm.
So things that fall under this would be like DUI, felony possession.
Yes. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a charge associated with substance use.
Okay.
It can also be a theft charge or any other felony charge as long as they have a history. It doesn't even have to be a history with a court of drug use. If it's somebody who knows that they've had issues with drug and alcohol use in the past, and I think our court kind of has a philosophy that a lot of times thefts and things like that are because people are looking for money to buy drugs.
Okay, yeah, that was kind of where I was going. I'm glad we clarified
yes.
that.
So it's not necessarily someone with an actual charge of substance use or felony DUI or anything like that. Mm-hmm. It's somebody who has a charge of something else. As long as it's a felony, we will look at them and consider them for our court.
So how would they go about getting into your court if they hear this and they're like,
sure,
that sounds like me?
And something, before I answer that question, something I wanted to address is with people who have felony DUIs, if they apply to our court, and as long as they apply to our court, it's an easier path to get their driver's license back. That's taken into consideration whether or not they apply to a wellness court. Mm-hmm. So if they apply, even if they're rejected, they still have a path for the driver's license.
It's still, okay, so if they just apply, even if they don't get accepted, it's going to be easier for them to get their driver's license?
Yes, if they don't, then they may never get their driver's license back.
Wow.
So it's something that we really want to promote.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I never knew that. Mm-hmm. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty critical.
Yeah.
To know.
Because we think about these, I was actually having this conversation the other day, because like, the reason I wanted to kind of get into that is like the issues that we face as a community aren't siloed into, oh, this person's an offender of this crime or this person's this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. We put these labels on people when really like substance abuse and misuse really can drive a lot of that. Mm-hmm. You know, like.
Well, I really like I was reading on the website, one of the goals of the wellness court is to reduce recidivism, I believe. I had to look that one up. But yeah, that's like, committing a crime and then going through the prison system and then going out and committing a crime again. Mm-hmm. So have you guys seen improvement in that area? Or is that a measurable statistic, or is that more of a goal?
It's something I'm sure is kept track of at a bigger level within the city or state. As far as our program, I do keep track of our graduates, those who have graduated our program, to check if they have reoffended. And so far, none of our graduates, we've had 6 so far in the past year, they have not reoffended. So right now we have 0% recidivism. I mean, as we get more graduates, that could change. But right now, the people who have successfully completed our program have not reoffended.
I mean, that really speaks to the effectiveness of a court that's an alternative to just jail.
Sure, and these are people that kept coming back through the system.
Right.
If you look at people who are coming up for arraignments, a lot of times you see the same names, and we have taken some of those names off the arraignment reports.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's incredible.
So this isn't court ordered. This is specifically people seeking this out. So everyone who's gone through this program, it's been really voluntary.
Yes.
Like they've been really on board with it.
It's a voluntary program, and we're still getting the word out because it's fairly a new court. We've only been around since, I think, the beginning of 2017. I think the agreement was made in 2016, and then the court actually started in 2017. So it's about 2 years old, and we promote it as much as we can, and defense attorneys are kind of realizing that we're out there and can talk to their clients about it, but we're still trying to get the word out. A lot of defendants don't know about it, and so hopefully by doing this podcast, more people will know.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
But they usually hear about it. They'll ask their defense attorneys. Sometimes the defense attorneys know about it and think that it's good for their client. Sometimes I look through the arraignment reports, and if I see somebody that I feel might meet our criteria, I will flag it and email the attorney. Sometimes the judge in the case kind of knows about it and will recommend it. So there's different avenues to getting to our court.
No, it's super cool. I think the whole overall concept of rehabilitation versus like punitive measures is, I think it's growing. Just like we were talking about earlier before we started recording, like people that typically go to jail, especially with substance misuse and abuse, first of all, they're forced to detox in an unsafe environment. And then second of all, a lot of the time they don't get the necessary help that they really need, which then, like when you get out, think about being in jail or prison for like 4, 5, 6 years. You've been separated from society for a long time. Then you come back and you have nothing. Still, you don't have really any new coping skills. You probably have new fight or flight responses, and you don't really have anything that's been advantageous to you coming out. You have no new skills, which is I'm going to next. So, like, what is kind of part of the rehabilitation process? Do you guys partner with outside sources? Do you do like an internal treatment program?
It's mainly through the Henu Wellness Center, the Kenai Indian tribe. So we try to get someone as close to when they're charged as possible, so they're not sitting in jail and dealing with all of that. Some of the applicants who come to us have been clean and sober for quite a while as well, before they were in jail. And all of our treatment is done through the Henu Wellness Center, including mental health treatment. So we have treatment groups, and then if they're assessed and they require mental health, we provide that as well. We do have community partners. Sometimes if they need residential, we will try to get them into a residential program. And then some of the other services that the tribe provides, the social services and things like that, they'll help us out in that respect as well. They also help us out with housing. So it's pretty inclusive as far as just mainly with the tribe, but our participants are out and about in the community, and we do sometimes use community resources.
Right, to kind of help fill in wherever might be needed,
Sure.
Oh, that's super cool. It blows my mind it's only one of 2 in the entire U.S.
And we're the only joint jurisdiction court in Alaska for anything.
Really? For anything at all?
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's becoming more apparent that just telling people to stop isn't working, just having
say no,
consequences is not going to prevent people from doing this. There's, struggles inside that people are dealing with, or, different things that they're fighting with. But it sounds like instead of that, with this kind of recovery approach, you can actually work on fixing some of those problems or kind of reintegrate into society. And I think with the success of this, it's probably going to be a more common thing. I mean, 6 people so far, and they're all doing well.
Yeah.
We have another graduate in November. The state of Alaska provides resources. The Kenai Indian tribe provides resources, and we're able to keep the court together. The state of Alaska provides public defender. The DA is also a part of our team. We have a court team. My job is provided by the state of Alaska. We have a state judge, and then the tribe provides the probation officer, the probation officer supervisor, the treatment team, mental health clinician, and a tribal court judge.
That's super inclusive.
They also
That's-
provide the UAs, and a lot of, like I said, they provide housing sometimes and different things like that.
When we think about like the barriers that come with, you know, recidivism in the first place, like you get out of jail, like we said, you don't really have much. You first of all, you don't have any new coping skills, and a lot of the time you don't have a place to go. Like housing's a big deal, transportation is a big deal. Even like these little things that seem so everyday to the majority of the population, like you know what I mean? Like if you get out of prison or jail or whatever, then you're like, okay, now you need to go complete this. You know, this is part of your probation. Or you need to go to your PO's office and do UAs, you know, once a week for however many weeks. But you don't have a car, and it's wintertime. It's frozen outside, and you have to walk from probably, in Alaska, a property somewhere outside of town, most likely. You have to find a way to get to your PO's office. So, like, helping with just transportation and housing, having a safe place to go. Not really live it, not having to go back to the same exact environment that you were in before, resorting back to the same exact habits and just ways of life that you were already in that led to your incarceration in the first place is like just incredible. I mean,
So like any other resource in the community, we struggle with housing and transportation. So we were able to utilize an apartment building that the Kenai owned, but now they're utilizing that for office space. So not all of our participants can go there anymore. They have another house that they're renting for some participants. But some of our participants, when they get out, have to stay at a shelter. Some of them have to go back to where they were living before. So it's not perfect, but we try to make sure that they're in a safe place,
right.
or that they have shelter at least. Transportation-wise, the tribe does provide some transportation for appointments. And then some of them are able to eventually get their licenses back while in the program and get cars, because our program does focus on helping them get a job or education so that they can start saving money and budgeting for cars and their own housing outside of vouchers and things like that.
Yeah. Teaching a lot of life skills.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have 4 phases. The first phase is trust, and that's usually they're getting out of jail or they've been in the community and they're coming into a program. That's about us trusting them, but it's also about them trusting us, that we're going to work with them and be there for them. And it's all about being honest. We realize that people relapse. We realize that those things happen. We try to work with them as best we can. We understand that that happens, so they do report to the court, and we do talk to them about if they've had a relapse, and there are things that we kind of work with them on. We try to do therapeutic adjustments as far as we do sanctions, but we also do therapeutic adjustments where we try to up their treatment time. We try to get them more mental health counseling. Maybe they might have to do other things to kind of meet court requirements. If they're struggling, we try to work with them as much as possible. And so the first phase is trust, and that's where we make sure their basic needs are met. Food, housing, clothing. Second phase is belonging. That's more about getting job, education, volunteering in the community. Living well is the third phase, and that's where they continue working, getting their education, and they're also doing things to give back to the community. And then the last phase is restorative before they graduate, which is where they've got a place in the community. They're really focused on their life sober, doing sober activities. And they have to have so many days of sobriety before they can move on to each phase.
Okay, so is there like an actual number for
There is for each phase, and I don't remember all of the numbers for each phase, but I know for some of them it's 45 days. For some of them it's, I think, 60 to 90 before they can move on to the next phase. And some people stay within their phase longer than the normal time frame would be, but that's because, they're still working hard to meet those requirements. The whole time is 18 to 24 months for all 4 phases.
It's a lot. And that's good though. No, it's
two-year
like
program,
that's
it's a
what it
2-year
takes,
program,
dude.
yeah.
And that's honestly like that's really cool. Honestly, like that the court's really like putting so much time and effort into people that probably haven't gotten that kind of attention, especially from a court system. That kind of attention from a court system their whole lives. You know what I mean? Like, or just really haven't ever been told like, no, this is gonna take a while, but we're gonna stick here with you through it.
And they are told that. I mean, our judges tell them that we're here for you. We're here to help you. We want you to be your best self. And it's a casual court. The judges are not in robes. It's at the tribal courthouse. The participants come in however they want to, jeans or whatever. And we're just there to kind of listen, to see how their week was. And we kind of give them applause for when they've had a good week, and they get some candy and stuff like that. So we have some incentives too.
Yeah. Well, that's super cool. It's like a whole, 2 years old, but obviously, like, even just in a more broad aspect, like a really new, like, inclusive approach to court in general, or just, I'm trying to think of the right word, or...
It's very much wraparound services.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's what people with substance misuse need. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like you said, it's not just one thing or another. Like, these things aren't just separated about. Like, they're all pretty intertwined. And so like this new holistic approach is just blowing my mind right now.
And we're really truly a team. All of these individuals get together from different sides of the courtroom, and they work together and they talk together, and they help support the participant in everything that they do. And so the DA's there every week. The judges are there every week, and it kind of gives a different face to what a defendant usually sees when they're in a courtroom. They see that they really care. They're here for me. And they do. They're there on that team because they really care about the substance abuse problem in our community, and they want to fix it, and they want to be a part of that solution.
It really seems to be breaking down that kind of us versus them, the kind of rebelliousness against, oh, society is just screwing me over sort of thing.
Right.
But then when you actually have someone in authority who's saying, hey, I'm rooting for you, I want you to succeed as well, that must be huge for them.
Yes.
And giving them the tools and an option, you know what I mean? Like, because in a normal, like, punitive system, it's like, oh, probation and go get help, All right, see ya. Like, and now, it's with Henu Community Wellness Court, it's, no, like, go get help. They're right here in this room. Like, let's get this figured out within the next 2 years and really set you up in a way that's actually going to be very beneficial for the rest of your life. This is really gives you the tools to put all that kind of behind you and live just a more well-rounded life in general, a happier life.
Yeah. When they're in our program, they're out in the community. They don't wear an ankle monitor. They don't need to be in jail unless for some reason they're sanctioned to jail for something that happens within the program. But they're being a human being, they're being a person and contributing, they're giving back. And non-native, native, we accept everyone.
Super cool.
So do you know what kind of started all this? Like, I know this is one of the it's a really rare system. Do you have any idea where the inspiration came from to start something like this in Alaska?
I don't necessarily know who specifically started it. I believe the Kenai Indian tribe approached the state with the idea.
Okay.
But I couldn't tell you exactly, who did that or how it all got started. But I believe the tribe approached the state, and the state was willing to work with them on it and came together.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's super cool.
And there are other therapeutic courts in the state of Alaska. They're just not joint tribal and state.
Right.
But they're state-run therapeutic courts.
Okay. I don't think I knew that either.
Yeah, we have several in Anchorage. We have one specifically for veterans in Anchorage from the state of Alaska. There's Anchorage, Fairbanks, Bethel, I think Palmer. Yeah, they have them throughout the state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's really
And
cool.
those are just strictly state-run courts.
Right.
But they have a team as well. They have a judge and the PD and the DA and a project coordinator for those courts as well. And a PO. They all work together and talk together as a team.
That's super cool.
So it's a similar structure.
Yeah, definitely. So your team you're talking about, do you guys meet, like, and kind of talk about just different aspects of how things are going to move forward, or like what does it look like for you, like, as a team member?
So we meet every week because we have court every Friday at 2:30. They're public hearings at the tribal courthouse. Anybody can come. But before court, our team meets and we discuss each participant in their week and how they're doing. We talk about applicants. We also have administrative meetings every month to talk about our policies and procedures and how we're moving forward, like you were talking about.
Right. That's super important, you know what I mean? It's like for the infrastructure to really continue to evolve
Sure.
as things evolve.
And we are continuing to evolve. We're consistently reviewing our policies and procedures, and we're constantly emailing throughout the week about any updates. Our PO is really great about Joe Green. He's really great about updating us if there's been any issues with a participant, so we can kind of be prepared to discuss it and be prepared to address it on that Friday's court.
Right. That's huge. You got all like typically you think about just the way like government typically works. It's slow and like a big lack of like right now communication. You know what I mean? It kind of really slows the process down for a lot of people in a lot of places and makes it pretty difficult to navigate. So the fact that like you guys meet however often to kind of make sure the infrastructure is moving forward to really give the participants the best options to succeed. You know what I mean? Like in being up to date and talking to each other and like really creating a good like support system for for the people in your program is super important. Yeah.
Sure.
At least I think so.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely non-traditional. Like normally you're waiting for 12 people in a separate room to figure out your fate, but this is people talking and figuring out how to change your life, make it better, make it something that's worth staying away from what got you there in the first place, basically. So
super incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I looked a little bit on the website and stuff, but this has definitely been super eye-opening for me, hearing about all these different qualities and how much of a hands-on approach to recovery it is, having all these people together to help out as a team, as you were mentioning. Yeah, I had no idea this existed, so this has been really cool.
Yeah, well, I want to get the word out.
Yeah,
it's a really great resource for people who are charged with a felony, who have a history of substance use, non-native, native, as long as they haven't been charged with sex offense, dealing, or assault, they would be a candidate. But even if they've been charged with that, if they have a felony DUI, they can still apply to our court as long as they can show that they've applied, even if they're denied.
Right.
Like I said, that's a path to a license. Now, if they have been accepted in the court, they need to participate in order to continue trying to get their license. But if they're denied, as long as they've applied, it'll make it a little easier.
Right.
Yeah, this really sounds like a second chance at life kind of thing.
It really is, and some of our graduates can tell you that they really have a second chance because some of our graduates have been reunited with their kids.
Wow.
You know, I know it's brought families together.
When you help someone out, is there care for their family as well, or is that a separate thing? Like, are they involved at all?
I mean, their family are certainly there to support them, and we certainly want them to have healthy connections with their family as long as their family members are healthy. You know, if their family members are using and not good influences, we don't necessarily want them to be hanging around them a lot. But yeah, we definitely promote them getting their kids back and being together as a family. However, our program and treatment comes first.
Yeah.
So that their focus really needs to be on themselves for the most part while they're in our program. And it makes them better for their family.
Right. It's the old empty cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody drinks from an empty cup. Yeah. I think that's one of the things, too, that, like, for a lot of people, just in general, you know, especially for people that come from history, like, of parental substance misuse or even violent home situations or anything like that, where it's like there's a level of mistrust at the very foundation of being. You know what I mean? So I think that step one, that phase one, you know, trust is it's a really interesting concept that like you would start there, which it makes a lot of sense when you hear it. But I think that's something that kind of goes overlooked sometimes. Is like when you develop at a very young age a simple mistrust for everybody else, it makes life kind of rough and tumble after that. You know, it's kind of looking over your shoulder all the time and not really knowing, does this person really have my best interest? Am I really supported in this? It creates a lot of questioning. So I feel like when you start at step one and you go like right to that trust phase, how do people typically respond to that right away? Like when you're like, no, like really, you can trust us. Like we're really going to try to help you out. Like, do you get a little bit of pushback there?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, it's not necessarily right away usually. I
Mhm.
mean, usually if someone's had a relapse, they don't necessarily admit it until after they're shown the results that are
Mhm.
positive, and sometimes even then they have a hard time admitting that they used to the court, because I guess our society and just their history in general showed them, I'm going to be punished
Mhm.
if this happens. And I think
Right.
our court really understands that a lot of substance use is a person's way of coping with trauma
Mhm.
and other things that have happened to them. It's not just because they really, really want to use. It's a coping mechanism.
Mhm.
And our court understands that with substance use, people will sometimes relapse. And they don't condone it by any means, but
Mhm.
they understand it. And so we have tools in place that we use when that happens.
Mhm.
And so, yes, in the first phase, sometimes there is a struggle with trust because they're not used to trusting authority figures and they're not used to trusting anyone outside of themselves. And we can really, hopefully, with weekly court sessions, we can prove to them that they can trust us. And then eventually, when they start being honest, we can trust them.
Right.
You mentioned that sometimes people relapse, and you have a way of dealing with that. Like, what constitutes finding out that the program isn't working for someone? What is the limit to that?
We do have limits. According to our policies and procedures, when they've had 6 or more relapses, we can discharge them from the program.
Mhm.
We haven't had to do that too often.
Yeah.
Usually that does not happen, but it has
Mhm.
happened in the past. When they've just consistently not been honest for a long period of time, we sometimes will discharge them. And that's not necessarily their fault or ours. It's just they just can't establish that
Right.
trust
Mhm.
in the amount of time that we need them to.
Right.
And that's
Definitely.
kind of the basic first step. Like,
Yeah.
if you can't
Mhm.
trust someone, where do you go from there?
And we understand that the trust takes time to build.
Mhm.
And so the first phase is 120 days.
Right. Maybe they're just not ready. You know, I mean, like, and not like just like to trust people, because that obviously takes a long time anyway. But like in the recovery stories we've heard, it's not always like the first 6 times. You know what I mean? Like, and not to say that those people are like, oh, they couldn't make it through this, so now they're destitute. You know, like there's still hope for those people. Just because it doesn't work out here doesn't mean it's not going to work out somewhere else. You know what I mean? Like, it just takes a lot of that stuff is so ingrained. You know what I mean? For such a long time that like even something like you said, it's not perfect. Like this system's not perfect, and there are going to be some people out there that don't necessarily fit it, that might need something else. You know what I mean? But I just want those people to know that when you are ready for help, there is something for you in this community. Like we're going to find a way. It may not necessarily be Henu Community Wellness Court. It may be an intensive inpatient. It might be going somewhere out of state. It might be a whole radical environment change is really what you need. But if you need a court system, a long-term support, accountability, care, trust, if those are the things that you feel like you need and you qualify for this court system, I feel it would be very beneficial to talk to a lawyer or talk to the judge or whoever you need to talk to. Or if you're a lawyer and you're listening to this and you know somebody that might fit this bill, don't wait. It's huge. You know, the shift we're going through from punitive to rehabilitative is, I think, one of the biggest steps in really addressing the epidemic that we're in now, because it's a cycle. People we talk to now with substance misuse disorders are, you know, people who get from everywhere. You know what I mean? It's like experimentation. It's cyclical. It's whatever. But once you start getting into the punitive system, like, it's a really difficult system to find your way out of.
Yes, and we provide an option for that. I think part of the reason why our court works well is that a lot of people, when they get that felony charge, that's kind of their rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I think that we kind of give them an alternative. We kind of have a kind of carrot for them to say, hey, this is a better option for me. So that's why we take felony offenders, and that's why we try to get them so close to when they're charged, because I think they have the mindset that at that point that they really want to change.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to target with our court. Sometimes people haven't gotten to that place yet, but a lot of them have. And once they get in our court and see that people actually care about their recovery, and they're there for them and they're working hard for them every week, it does make a difference. Not to all, but to majority of the people that we serve.
Definitely. I just think it's really cool. I'm just like trying to take it all in right now. But I think this broad shift that is being made to therapeutic court and should be made to therapeutic court is awesome. You know, as we as individuals daily start to care for people, you know, it's the individuals that make the whole what it is, you know. As people like you and the judges and the POs and all these people really start to show the people that need it most that they really do care, like, I think that says a lot for where we're at as a community.
Yes, and we need more funding for therapeutic courts. Joint jurisdiction courts, yes, and also just state courts, whatever, as long as they're therapeutic wellness courts. I think for different types, not just drugs, but other things. There's family courts, veterans courts, different courts that we could do if we just had the funding for this kind of alternative court process.
Right.
Definitely. And this seems to be a huge move in the direction of instead of just putting people out of society who are struggling to function in it, figuring out a way to reintegrate them into society. And it's kind of stopping that reoccurring problem of people who are in these difficult situations, feel like they have nowhere to go, like you pointed out earlier, Aaron, that they now have a way to come back and really function and make a life that is worth having.
Yes, the Henu Community Wellness Court's vision is transforming lives for a healthier community, because we're really trying to make our community healthier. We have a substance use problem that's been documented, and we are trying to help person by person heal our community.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Shera. We're super excited to hear about this and help get the word out.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. This was you and I for the Kenai.